What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Juice. My name is Sayre Bedinger, and here with me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, Brandon Keckler. Brandon, how you doing, man?
I'm so ready for training camp.
I am as
It's
well.
time.
I'm with you. It's finally time. I mean, literally, when people are listening to this, I would venture to guess that today is training camp day. Today is the day. It's time for Denver Broncos football to return to our lives on a daily basis.
Non-stop, baby. And we're not going to
Nonstop.
stop until the Super Bowl.
That's right. We have to, as if any of you have been listening to the show over the past couple of months, first of all, thank you. We're really excited to get this off the ground. It's kind of been a dream of both of ours just to do something like this, to be able to talk Denver Broncos, and what an amazing thing. If this is your first time listening, Brandon and I actually actually met on Twitter, and I've found it's been really cool to be able to meet some of the guys that I've kind of first interacted with on Twitter, and you were the first person that I ever met originally online in person,
Wow.
which is pretty awesome.
And now we're IRL friends
That's right.
in real life.
That is right. Yep. In real life friends. In real life friends doing this podcast thing. I know there's a million podcasts out there, but guess what? This one's gonna stand out. This one's gonna set itself apart because I feel like there's a lot of other things out there that are just gonna they'll give you the hard news. They'll tell you how it is or how they think it should be, but we're gonna tell you what we want it to be. We're gonna create the story arc of the Denver Broncos. We're
Hmm.
gonna keep it optimistic but realistic at when we need to be. We're gonna keep it real. We're not gonna sit here and tell you that the Broncos are gonna go 19-0, except for they are. I mean, I just have to tell you that right now. But I'm
Spoiler
not
alert.
gonna. Yeah, spoiler alert. I mean, we've already witnessed it. We're fighting from victory this season, not for it. So it's just a matter of time. But the road to 19-0 begins at Denver Broncos training camp, and I couldn't be more excited. And you
You
and I
know,
are the same way in that.
it's a little bit of a rocky road right now.
hmm It is a bit of a rocky road, and
There.
we're also all about the puns here in the Rocky Mountains, obviously. In Denver, in
Hmm.
Colorado, and that's just how it is. That's it. The NFL is never it's never easy in the NFL. It's never easy to be great in the NFL on a consistent basis, and I think that there's been no greater example of that over the past couple of years in the Denver Broncos. You look at what they were with Peyton Manning and how great they became, and even in his final year with the team, they were still great. But we saw firsthand just how tough it is to transition from one era to the next, to go from a great quarterback like that to having big question marks at quarterback. And that was a huge emphasis for the Broncos over the course of this offseason, a huge reason why John Elway decided to go and pay the big bucks for Case Keenum, to go get a guy who could win some games, who proved last season that in the right offense, coaches who believe in him, with teammates that believe in him. And I think Keenum, I don't know, maybe chime in if you agree with me on this, Brandon. I don't know if Keenum is necessarily a guy that needs everything around him to be right in order to be effective. I think he's kind of just coming into his own right now.
That's not the way that I would describe him as far as he's finally got the right pieces last year. I think that he's just, like you said, second. I think it's just clicked. I think there's
Mhm.
just something about how comfortable he is, how much he understands the game and the speed of the NFL, and he's ready. He's primed and he's at the right time. And now I think he's actually
Yeah.
moving over into a better position than he was in last year that he was successful in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that the Broncos have, maybe not necessarily the young up and coming, like with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs at wide receiver, but we're looking at guys in Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders being the top 2 targets for Keenum, who those guys are proven Pro Bowl, all pro players. I mean, those guys are studs. And I think that a lot of times people get caught in this kind of false narrative that when you hit age 30 in the NFL, if you play any position other than quarterback or offensive tackle, like your career is over.
Or kicker.
Or kicker, yeah. I mean, Adam Vinatieri, what is that guy? 55?
Jeez.
He's been playing football as long as I've been alive, basically. I'm being sarcastic, but I think he's
Right.
literally
Yeah.
I think he's literally the oldest player to ever play. He's got to be. Because he was
crazy.
playing back when I was in middle school, dude.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Wow.
wild?
Yeah.
That's wild. He made a game-winning kick in the Super Bowl when I was in middle school. So I mean, he's been around. He's
Isn't
been
that
around the
crazy?
block.
Last man standing.
It is. It is crazy. That is wild to me. It's wild to me that anyone could sustain any career for that amount of time at this high of a level. That's a hard thing to do. Like making field goals just to divert for a second here. I mean, let's appreciate what Adam Vinatieri's been able to do for probably 35 years of his life. Just kicking field goals, man, accurately. That's hard.
The kickers need some love too, man.
They do. And you know who needs to be more accurate this season? Brandon McManus.
Yep.
There ends our Brandon McManus segment on the juice. We will not be discussing him further unless he screws things up. Chargers
If he screws
style.
things up, I think we just need to put King in at kicker.
Oh, I'm here for that. I'm here for Marquette King kicking field goals. That would be incredible.
He could do it.
He could. I bet you he can. Did you see, speaking of Marquette King, did you see his video playing horse against the Harlem Globetrotter?
No.
Oh, man.
No, but I need to. That sounds amazing.
He made some trick shots in that video. I won't spoil the ending, but he made some trick shots in that video that what's the guys who specialize in the trick shots? Dude Perfect. Right? Is that their name?
I don't know.
Oh, man.
It's not ringing any bells.
All right, so Dude Perfect and the Marquette King video is something that you got to look up. So Dude Perfect is they specialize in just making these wild and crazy videos of them doing trick shots, and they're like a sensation. Well, what I was saying is King had some shots in that video that would make them proud. So, I mean,
that's
using
awesome.
his feet and his arm. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm taking notes. I'll look those both up.
Yep. Absolutely. So that's the special team. I mean, we're
giving mad love to special teams over here.
We're giving mad love to special teams, and we haven't even talked about the punt return, kick return situation, which is a little bit depressing to think about as of last season. But the NFL obviously trying their best to do away with kickoff returns. That's not a huge issue right now. But for some reason, and I don't know if you notice this too, I'm sure a lot of people notice this. For some reason, the Broncos have very little reason to return kicks in Denver. When is a kickoff ever short enough that it's justified to return it?
It's a great point.
But they returned far too many kickoffs last year from 8 yards deep in the end zone, and it cost them big time in field position. I think the Broncos were one of the worst teams in the NFL, if not the worst team in terms of starting field position.
Wow.
Which is really, I mean, obviously the the offense wasn't good anyway, but
right.
I mean, why not make it harder for them by pinning them deep in their own end zone? Yeah, absolutely. The Broncos.
That's why we got a new special teams coordinator.
That is right. Tom McMahon. He's coming in. He's going to fix it. So they ranked 26th in the league in starting field position offensively. They started on their own 27 on average, every average start field position, and they rank 32nd. This is why Riley Dixon was traded. They rank 32nd in opponent starting field position. The average drive for the opponent Give me one guess at what yard line you think it started at. The
Wow.
average drive. This is bad.
30.
33.
Wow.
So I mean,
Wow.
you're
That
giving
was a
them
high guess too.
less than 2 first downs to get to midfield every drive, and the defense still ranked number 1 in yards per carry allowed. That's incredible.
Wow.
That's amazing. No wonder we didn't force any turnovers last year. Teams didn't have to move the ball. Jeez.
These are some great stats.
Those are some crazy stats.
We're going in depth here at the Juice.
We're going super in depth here at the Juice. We're going super in depth because that's what we do. That is what we do. Yeah, wow, that's crazy. And the defense allowed an average of 23.8 yards per drive to opponents, which was second best in the NFL. So they had the worst starting field position, and our defense allowed the second fewest yards per drive.
Wow.
That's great. Hey, kudos to the D.
Yeah, that makes that number even better.
Kudos to the D, man. But today, we talked about the defense in our last podcast. So if you haven't, go and check that out. It was a really fun episode because the defense is just freaking awesome. They're just so good. It's fun to talk about the defense. This is a great time for Denver Broncos fans. It reminds me of the early to mid 2000s Chicago Bears. You know, where you could just like, if you turn on a Bears game, you're like, how many fantasy points does the Bears D have?
Yeah.
How many touchdowns have they scored? How many tackles does Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs have? Like they had star power for it felt like a decade, and they just dominated. And I feel like our defense is on that same trajectory.
Yep.
Since 14 that we've had this kind of core on defense that's been carrying us. That's awesome.
They're sleeping on us this year.
They are. And they is, you know who you are. If you're sleeping on the Broncos, you are they. That's how that is. That's how that works. And so
reality's coming for you fast.
Reality's coming fast. We need to wake them up. And John Elway did his best to kind of wake everybody up today. I think Elway does a pretty good job of being politically correct and whatnot during his press conferences. Like he doesn't commit hard to any certain things really. He's not like, you know, he keeps it pretty.
I get what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying. So somebody asked him today how he would define a successful season. And I think you and I would answer this question far differently, but Elway, you know, being the guy that he is, he says, I'm not going to put a number on it. He doesn't want to apply unnecessary pressure to Vance Joseph, his coaching staff, his players. He doesn't want to say, well, we're going to win 10 games, you know.
Set a standard that they then have to meet.
Right, because then if they don't get 10 wins, then it's like, well, what are you going to do? You know, are you going to fire Vance? Are you going to get a new quarterback? Or what are you going to do?
You know, it's funny on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Madden asks you in week 1 what your expectations are for the season.
Oh, really?
And that's you set that, and you'll either get fired or you'll get a huge XP payout if you meet it or don't meet it. So that's pretty funny. And it's the press that asks you the question.
Interesting. So. Interesting. I would imagine that those discussions happen behind closed doors.
Right.
But that is interesting. And it was cool to hear Elway respond to that. But the better thing that I thought, and this is kind of a mantra the team can go by the rest of the season. Later on, a couple questions later in the press conference, Elway was asked, you know, obviously you don't want to put a number on it, but what are you going to do if you miss the playoffs again for the third straight year? And he's like, I haven't thought about not making it.
Yeah.
Just flat out. And that's how we need to we need to collectively start thinking that way. Haven't thought about it.
Yep. There is no plan B, baby.
There is no plan B.
We're back here again.
There is no plan B because let's just flesh this out here for a second. What would happen if that was the way that you're thinking? If you're thinking, well, the Broncos aren't going to make the playoffs, so then what's the follow-up thought to that? So are they going to fire their coach? And then what's the follow-up thought to that? So which coach are they going to hire? And then all of a sudden, you've already replaced Vance Joseph for 20. You're already in 2019, and you can't even enjoy this year because you're like, well, we're gonna suck.
Right.
So what's the point of even being a fan if you're just going to be that way, you know?
Right. So it may have been a question that they were going to ask that needed to be asked, but that was the answer that you were going to get.
Yeah,
Is there is no plan B.
exactly.
We're gonna get good old fashioned Elway on that one.
Exactly. Because we know that Elway is not going to tolerate not making the playoffs.
No.
And I think as of last year, the quarterback situation was so bad that he had to keep Vance Joseph.
Yeah.
You can't blame that all on Vance.
Right.
Is as bad as the coaching staff was last season, you can't blame that all on Vance Joseph.
Right.
I mean, it was pathetic. Three different guys couldn't figure it out, and it's
And you better believe if we have a rocky first half and or we finish the season terribly, he's firing him. That's
yeah,
happening. There's not a chance that he's around if he doesn't make the
right,
playoffs. We all
right,
know that.
yeah, because it
Get
came close to that this past year.
right.
I mean, they were close to pulling that trigger. You better
Right.
believe it. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the most embarrassing years they've had in a long time. 8 straight losses. I mean, my gosh. But you want to know
Unforgivable.
what I found? It is unforgivable. It's unforgivable. The only way to make amends now is to win games.
To win 8 games in a row
Yeah, yep, I agree. Eye
at
for an
some
eye.
point in the season.
Eye for an eye. Win 8 games in a row. In fact, I would take 8 wins in a row at the same exact point that they did last year. They starting week 6, they lost 8 games in a row going through week 13.
Sounds
So
good to me.
from October 15th until December 10th, every game to make up to atone for the sins that were committed in 2017.
I will accept that. I
I
will
will
accept
accept
that
that as well.
atonement.
I will accept it. And I was thinking of something kind of interesting the other day when I'm reading through all these preseason predictions, and like 5 years ago I would have got super fired up about a prediction that had the Broncos going 6-10, even if that was, closer to the realistic number than my prediction. But I find it interesting that this year anyone is predicting the Broncos to win fewer than 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why. It's because they won 5 games last year with one of the most pathetic offenses I've ever seen in my life, which turned the ball over 34 times, which was almost dead last in the league. And still, they won 5 games, and they lost 2 more games by 3 points.
Right.
So they're a bounce of the ball away from 7-9 with one of the worst offenses in Broncos
See, but you
history.
you gotta see how they look at all 32 teams, and it's more about what's the temperature of the global conversation right now.
Hmm.
What's the overall sentiment, and I think that is decided by a lot of shallow opinions of the Broncos
Yes.
from national media. That's a lot of shallow opinions, a lot of people looking at it very glossed over, seeing a very simplified understanding where you kind of got to make like a quick judgment based off of just a limited understanding. And we know that if you put it under the microscope, that's how it looks, and that we are absolutely being completely underestimated right now.
Yeah.
But to them, it's like as simple as they've lost their hype
Hmm.
on us, and we haven't done enough to bring it back. And I think
Yeah.
that's primarily, it's strange, man. I think that the temperature would be completely different if we had grabbed Kirk Cousins. As far
Yes.
as the social climate, as far as what people would be thinking about the Denver Broncos, we'd be a different
Yep.
team in the national media's mindset right now if we had Kirk. And I think we're gonna have just about the same production, if not, well, we'll see. I want to say if not better, but
Yeah.
yeah. Out of case than Kirk. So that's interesting
Yeah.
to me that like we're not seeing as highly because, oh, it's just we just got Case Keenum after his one good year. I think that's what's
Yep.
playing in the back of people's minds, whether they're admitting it or not.
Absolutely. Everyone's thinking that he's going to revert back to the Jeff Fisher. But what's funny to me is, okay, so Jeff Fisher had all on the same team: Jared Goff, Case Keenum, Nick Foles. And everybody's talking about Jared Goff as this, MVP candidate. Nick Foles won Super Bowl MVP, and all of a sudden he's a great asset to the Eagles. And both of those guys, now that they got away from Jeff Fisher, their careers have been revived and jump started, and things are going to start going well for them. These guys got Sean McVay involved. You got Doug Peterson involved. But for some reason, Keenum's situation isn't going to continue progressing because why? That's what
Mm.
that's the kind of narrative thing that bothers me, is that, well, we can sit here and say Jared Goff's going to continue to progress and Nick Foles is going to continue to progress or continue to be able to play well with the Eagles and the supporting cast and the coaching staff that he has there.
By the way, hold on a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Our listeners are probably confused. You've said Jared Goff in regards to the Eagles, and you've meant Carson Wentz, right?
No. So I'm talking about Jared Goff as far as like the guys that Jeff Fisher all had, and now that they're separated
Okay.
from.
I was hearing. Sorry, I was mixing up like Nick Foles and
Oh no, I got
the
you.
Eagles quarterback situation. Okay, sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, yeah, I got you. So I'm just saying, now that those guys are all separated from Jeff Fisher,
Right.
and everyone wants to say that Jared Goff and Nick Foles can be great. Foles is this big trade asset for the Eagles now, and he could be a starter on X amount of teams.
Got it. Yep.
But Keenum, for some reason, and I'm not trying to say that the Broncos are this victim. I could care less what national media think is going to happen, because when push comes to shove, I love being right more than anything. I mean, it's one of the greatest feelings of all time. And when you can sit there and watch people eat humble pie, it's a great deal. And so I've just kind of learned to embrace and enjoy that. But I don't know. I feel like Case Keenum may be the most underrated player on the team.
Right.
I would
Yeah.
put him in that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can see that.
who would you make an argument for otherwise as the most underrated player on the Broncos right now?
That's what I was just thinking about.
I don't even know. Maybe Chris Harris.
You just beat me by about a half second. Yeah.
But he's underrated by national guys because the cornerback position is so glamorized by players who go out and say stupid things or do crazy things. Like
Right.
Chris Harris Jr. just goes about his business.
Right.
He doesn't make a big deal about.
And he's only maybe like 5 spots lower than he should be when it comes to on the cornerback list, where it's like this is a much bigger drop where people are probably placing Case. He's nowhere near the top. People still regard Chris Harris as one of the best.
Right.
No one has that high of expectations for Case Keenum.
No. Nobody thinks that he has a chance to return to the top 10 as far as quarterback rating or efficiency or touchdowns or yards, or everything last year was an anomaly, an outlier, and it will remain that way according to them, which is fine. Like
that's how we always are, man. That's how everything we always do is a fluke or
right. Because people are, for some reason, trained to believe at some point in their life, which this is sad. We're trained to expect the worst and hope for the best. And I think as Broncos fans, we should start bucking that trend. We should start expecting the best, hoping for the best, and accepting whatever happens. Like let's not call something dead before it has a chance to live. You know what I'm saying? The 2018 season cannot be dead. Because we haven't seen these guys play down a football.
Nope.
So
you know who I'm hoping that we get to see play down a football?
Tell me about it.
It's Carlos Henderson.
Man, you're telling me.
What's going on right now, man?
It's the most bizarre pre-camp bull crap I've ever seen in my life. And I want to tread lightly here because family is important. I mean, family is very important, and I don't know the situation with Carlos Henderson, and so I'm going to assume the best for him because if there's something serious going on with his family, like I mean, be there for your family, man. Like you only get one life, and you don't want to look back and think, well, I was at training camp for 3 days when this X and Y and Z was happening in my family, and I regret it now. You don't want to be in a position of regret.
Right.
But
So
at
there
the
could
same
be one of
time,
those scenarios.
yeah, it could be. It very well could be. It could be something very serious. It could be something that's very worth his time to miss training camp. And I'm not going to say that it's not, but when you listen to Vance Joseph, who probably knows exactly what it is, when you listen to Vance Joseph talk at his press conference on Friday, he made it sound like, if Carlos wants to make the team, he's got to decide it on his own. That's a
Wow.
pretty callous statement for somebody who's going through something serious in their family life. You
Pretty
know,
pretty sobering one for Broncos fans to hear.
it is, man. I mean, and what's the deal with that? Because you're the guy that thinks beyond the. I'm the guy that sees things 2 feet away. You're the guy that sees things miles around. You see the big picture. You see the way people think. Is this a situation where I'm just worried that it's going to be another failure for the Broncos, or is it something a lot more simple than that? Is it just is it, well, I really don't want Carlos Henderson to fail. What do you think is the general consensus among Broncos fans as far as their attitude toward this?
I think a lot of confusion because there's just not enough of they're keeping it private. They're keeping whatever's private, and there's not this window that Broncos fans have into compiling, I think, the evidence and the things that they need to know, the context. There's a lot of context they're not aware of. And
Yeah,
so that makes it hard to make a decision. And I think that, it's tough because you kind of want to fall in one camp or the other. You
right.
either want to be like, yeah, the guy, let's just give him some time or whatever. But I think it's like everything coupled with, I think some of the statements already over the past month or so involving Carlos Henderson that kind of caused us to tense up and worry a little bit, coupled with this. And then last season, not really getting to see him too much. And also now having these other young wide receivers that could make him irrelevant or a need for him to be erase the need for him, So I think that's
Mhm.
all of those things kind of together. Fans are not really sure how to feel about Carlos Henderson. I know my dad called me as this was all going on and was just like, "Oh, he's done, dude. He's done. He's gone." And I thought like I was getting the news from him, and I thought like, "Wow, did we already we lost Carlos Henderson just like that?"
Yeah,
And I know it's not as certain of a situation, but it seems like there's a lot up in the air. It's hard to gauge
right,
how to feel, and so I think Broncos fans are just they don't like how many question marks have come out of this pick
right.
and
Is he
no
at a point?
results.
Yeah, no results. That's the problem. If we had seen him do anything on the field, there's no doubt in my mind. It's like, all right, go deal with your family issue. Come back whenever you want.
Oh,
You were a third round pick last year.
right.
Just do your thing. But he was hurt early on in training camp and re-injured his thumb. I think it was in that Bears preseason game. That was the only preseason game we saw from Henderson, and that was that. If that's the last thing we see from him as a Denver Bronco is that
It's
preseason
tragedy.
game, I'm gonna be real upset. And it's for me with a guy like that, a guy who's that talented that you invested such a high draft pick in. John Elway's never cut anybody that he drafted that high after one season. Even Monte Ball, even you could scroll through the list of names of guys who have completely just sucked, and he hasn't. Ronnie Hillman wasn't arrested for marijuana, but Ronnie Hillman was really bad his rookie season, and then kind of got buried on the depth chart a little bit the next year, and it was just like he got put in the dog. It was kind of a similar situation. I was kind of trying to connect those dots, though Hillman didn't get in any legal trouble like Henderson did, which is another factor in this. He got arrested for marijuana in Louisiana as a passenger in a vehicle, and there's just a lot of things compounding together. And maybe the guy's questioning his passion for the game. Who knows? Who knows?
And seeing Vance Joseph talk about it in the times he's been asked, not only the recent one but the one before that, it's interesting that you get this little window into what's going on behind the scenes, because we just don't know. There's this whole other world of all the stuff that's happening, and hearing how he talked about him was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
It really like kind of caught me off guard, because he was just like, oh, Carlos, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was like there was a frustration that they had with Carlos that I don't even think really any of us knew was necessarily there. And then now it's like when they're talking about him missing things for family and potentially missing training camp and these kinds of things, it's like coupled with this frustration where it's not just like, yeah, we're upset at this thing he just did, this isolated incident. It feels like that behind closed doors, there's something going on with him. There's something going on, and I just don't know what it is.
Right. Cameron Parker, our good pal, fellow predominantly orange writer, Locked On Broncos co-host with our other good friend Cody Rourke, just made the point that you and I had talked about before we went on air, and that's maybe that it's a similar situation to that of Sua Cravens when he was with the Washington Redskins,
right?
Where he basically retired for a year, and his was much more injury related. He's talked about the fact that like his concussion issues were bad enough to the point that he was going to see a counselor about some stuff, and that really helped him. And so it was a really serious issue there. You never know if that's the same type of deal that's going on with Henderson, and it very well could be. And if that's the case, I mean, man, gosh, go talk to Sua Cravens. Ask him like, hey, what did you do? How did you get right? How did you get your passion back? Because obviously his passion is back. The thing that I would just hate the most from this, and this is super selfish of me, but you know what? I'm a Broncos fan first and foremost, and if I mean, not that I don't care about Henderson as a person, because I do, but I'm a Broncos fan, and if Henderson's interested in playing football still, then the scenario that plays out in my head is this: the Broncos cut him. That's the worst case scenario, and then even worse than that is he gets signed by the Patriots, and he goes and falls out for the Patriots. Could anything be worse?
That's the dark timeline.
Ugh. It's just that kind of, even the fact that that's a pot makes me cringe about him not making it in Denver. And I honestly, if somebody more fit to help the team, like by all means, find a way to get that guy on the team. But when you hear he's in the second year of his rookie contract, if he doesn't report to camp, his contract doesn't toll for the Broncos, and so he doesn't count against their cap. That contract will carry over to whenever he reports. And I just feel like, to me, that's a guy that has just way too much talent to give up on. Like, you drafted this kid and he's going through some stuff. And I know that there might be other guys that are working harder right now, but like, can you really justify putting a guy on your roster at wide receiver 6 that's worth cutting a recent third round pick for, if he's not like, getting in trouble for a serious legal problem? Like marijuana to me is not, it's poor judgment of him because he knows the rules, but it's not as serious to me as something like I would have cut LaShawn McCoy yesterday. I would have cut him whenever it happened 3 weeks ago. I'd be like, if that's the rumor going around with this guy, I don't want him on my team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like with Henderson, it's nothing like that. Like, you just got to pour into the guy. I don't know. I'm so conflicted by the whole thing, and it bothers me.
Yeah, and I think you can feel empathy for the fact that there's obviously something wrong with him and
Hmm.
that, he's a human being and he's going through this situation, and so you don't want to dehumanize him as this, you know, it's just so it's like entertainer, strictly an entertainer that needs to perform for you, or you're not happy with them. We know he's a human person with his own freaking journey and soul, and you know I empathize for whatever it is that he is going through, and if it's worse than we know of, I hope that all gets figured out and sorted out. But then you have the fan in you that's just like, you
Yeah,
know you're now looking like a pick that is potentially a bust and isn't going to
yeah,
get us anything. And not only do we not want to just lose that value, um, but we don't want you to go to the Patriots.
no, absolutely not. And that's exactly what will happen. I just know it. He'll clear waivers so that nobody has to pay the rest of his rookie deal. He'll get a 1 year deal from the Patriots. I can already see it happening. So the best case. So this is the situation that Denver now faces. If they have 5 or 6 wide receivers that they're like, all right, like we can't get rid of any of these guys. We can't cut anybody because these guys are going to be assets to our team for 16 regular season games and 3 postseason games after we get the #1 seed, including the Super Bowl. If they say if they determine that those 6 guys are so worth keeping, you have to find a way to trade Carlos Henderson for something to the team that you want him to go to, because you just can't. I mean, you just can't. You can't cut him. You
Who's
can't do
trading
it.
for him though?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't
Because
know.
there's too many question marks surrounding him, and it's looking like the Broncos are going to cut him anyway. And he's not
Ugh,
like he hasn't done anything. He didn't do anything his rookie year. It's not
right.
like it's a guy that
He has no
even
value.
Cravens had a pick his first year before all
Yeah,
that
he had
happened.
a good
It's
rookie
like
season.
he had a good
Yeah.
rookie season. So Henderson doesn't have any substance yet
No,
to show that he'd be worth trading for.
that's the and that is another part of my just disdain for this situation. Just the whole thing is unsettling and just awful. I my hope is that the Broncos welcome him back with open arms when he comes back. They give him an opportunity to compete. I don't care if he's catching passes from Chad Kelly with the third offense. Get him back into the swing of things. Get him making plays. Get him comfortable. Give him opportunities to return kicks. Give him the opportunity to return punts. Whatever it takes, just find a way to get the guy to extract the potential that you saw in him when you invested such a high draft pick. Because last year's draft for wide receivers was really good. I mean, there's some good
Right.
players in that class. So you
Right.
passed on other guys to get Carlos Henderson. So find a way. Find a
Hmm.
way. Find a way to get him involved.
Yeah.
That's
I think
my
they're going
demand.
to. I think they're going to give him up a lot of opportunities. I don't see anything being a shortage on their end.
No. Right. Right.
This seems like it's all something's going on with Carlos Henderson.
Correct. Yep, I would agree with that. So, say he comes back on Monday. What happens?
I think he's dropped down a peg or so, and just needs to come out and work and get back to where he was at, and that they'll give him every opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I can see that. I can see that happening. Well, if ever by any means Carlos Henderson would listen to this, Carlos,
Don't sign with New England.
don't sign with New England. Just be a just let's do it. Let's do this thing. Be part of the 19-0 movement.
Yep.
That's what you need to do.
It's be part of the wide receiver trifecta of destiny that is Hamilton,
Yeah.
Sutton, and Henderson. Man, I want to see the future.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want that big time that is another factor in it because after this year, the Broncos have committed just a ungodly amount of money to the wide receiver position. I think it's $29 million to Sanders and Thomas alone on the cap. And so if those two guys are gone, what you need Henderson there.
Gone. One of them's got to be gone.
Yeah.
With the guys behind them and that kind of money.
Yep.
Is it guaranteed?
It's not all guaranteed, no, but that's their cap hit. So that would be a certain portion of it would be guaranteed. Probably, I would guess that Demarius has more of a guarantee.
Yeah.
On his, but I don't have their contracts pulled up or anything, so I'm guessing it's more so on Thomas's end, the guarantees. But yeah, those cap hits, I mean, you can't unless the player's willing to rework it, you know. That's like that's their base salary, and anything that you can't get out of, or
right.
not everything that you can't get out of, but you can cut those cap hits down sometimes. You never know if a player's willing to do that. If Demarius, that's another thing. If Demarius and Sanders play at a really high level this season, how do you justify? You know, if you're clicking with Case, you know he's got 1 year left on his deal after this year. That presents another interesting situation after the year of whether or not you keep them.
Mm-hmm.
You keep them both. I mean, I don't know. That's tough. It's really tough.
So going into training camp, tell me your thoughts on some of these offensive position battles.
Yeah, I think the biggest one obviously is at running back, you know, replacing CJ Anderson, finding a new bell cow, as John Elway literally called Royce Freeman on the phone, called him the bell cow. He said, "I want you to be our bell cow," when he drafted him. And Elway keeps talking about, you know, how the Broncos ideally would get a guy who can be a 3-down back, a guy who can contribute on all 3 downs. And he's like, unless you're picking in the top 5 of the draft, you know, you usually don't get one of those guys. And obviously Saquon Barkley wasn't available to the Broncos in the draft. So they're in a situation now where it's going to be kind of a committee approach initially. But I think Devontae Booker's got the early edge. You know, this is his 3rd year with the team. And then Royce Freeman's going to be nipping at his heels, man. I feel like Royce is when you watch him at college, he looks like a seasoned vet playing the position. Like there's some college players where you just watch them and you're like, man, it sucks for the other team because that guy's like a professional playing against college guys. He's a professional playing against kids. And that's what Royce Freeman has looked like for like 3 years now, because he was dominant from the get-go at Oregon. But I mean, the guy's he's so big, fast, strong, quick, decisive. Like I don't know. I really liked him a lot more than a lot of the draft Twitter guys did coming out, just because of the football intelligence that he seems to have. He just gets it, you know.
Right.
So I think that's an interesting battle, because you've got those 2 guys at the top, and then D'Angelo Henderson. You know, I mean,
he's got to be that dark horse candidate.
He is. After last year's preseason, I'm like, get this guy the number 1 carries. He was explosive, man.
I think it'd be awesome if he just comes out and just blows them both away.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
I'm not expecting that to happen.
If somebody does that, would anybody be mad about it? Like, does anybody have favorites in the race at this point?
No.
Until Royce has the number 24 jersey? No. Like we've talked about. We've discussed this. You know, if he gets number 24, he might jump
that ugly jersey off.
Yeah, get that. 37 is reserved for practice squad player.
Right.
Just call up Champ Bailey. Just tell him you'll pay him $20,000 or whatever he wants. You can afford it now.
Right.
Just pay for that.
You look like a safety that's not going to make the team.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That number belongs. I'm not gonna call somebody out. I was gonna name a safety that's not gonna make the team, but we're not gonna do that yet. That's just rude. It's a training camp opener.
Bronco player that actually follows our podcast.
Yeah,
he's so stoked. Oh no.
We lost our only player listener. No. Oh man. Yeah.
Done before we ever began.
Yep, done before it begins.
We
So
made fun of our one guy that was our window in.
we did. We made fun of him. Sorry, guy. You know who you are. You're not making the team. Just let it be known right now. That's the
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing about the safety position is like we're we're not going to really like talk about that roster battle because the safety position is just so deep, but that is an interesting one because somebody's going to get cut that is probably going to play for another NFL team, probably the
Yeah.
Browns because they have the number one waiver claim.
Yeah.
And so it's going to come down to like Jamal Carter, DeMonte Thomas, those guys down there. I mean, as of the end of last season, I would say that my guess is that it's going to be DeMonte Thomas that makes the team.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I just think that he has a much higher value to the team defensively as Carter. So this is the big stat, okay? So DeMonte Thomas was active for 3 regular season games last year. 3.
Mm-hmm.
He played 6 fewer snaps defensively than Jamal Carter played. He was active for all 16 games.
Wow.
6 fewer snaps in
What a
3 games.
stat.
Yep. So I think that's the clearest indicator that we have of DeMonte Thomas. He's about to make the Denver Broncos. He's going to be that number 10 defensive back, that jack of all trades, can play special teams, can do some stuff in the slot, come up and hit you. He's got good speed. I think he
Yeah.
takes Jamal Carter's roster spot this year.
I
And
loved the article that Steve and Mace were talking about replacing Talib by
yes,
just being creative with the defensive scheme to suit the
isn't
players
that
that we have.
awesome?
Yeah, it was a
Leave
good.
it to, leave it to Steve Atwater, man. Guy knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to defense. For those of you who didn't hear it, Steve Atwater suggested that the Broncos replace Aqib Talib by using some more zone coverage this year, which the Broncos are pretty much a straight man cover team. And the reason that they've been able to do that is because they have 3 of the best man cover players in the NFL. I mean, Aqib Talib one-on-one, who's winning that battle? Bradley Roby one-on-one. Over the past 2 seasons, Roby's won most of those battles. Chris Harris Jr. in the slot, one-on-one. I mean, you're not winning
Done.
that battle. That's a recipe right there for just an elite man coverage defense. But now without Talib, now if you have their rationale was if without Talib, you've got a number 3 corner that's going to get picked on, whether it's Tremaine Brock, Isaac Yadam, Brendan Langley, whoever it ends up being, the other team's just going to pick on that guy, and they're not going to throw the ball at Roby or Harris and give your defense more chance to intercept the ball. I mean, that just makes sense. So if you throw in some zone coverage with the pass rush the Broncos have, you might be able to coax the defense to throwing the ball at Roby and Harris a few more times. I love
Right.
that idea.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
A lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do going into the year, and then also just how they adapt going through it when they
Right.
see kind of what's working and what's happening with their pieces. I want coaches that are going to learn from their mistakes, and they're going to get better, and are going to adapt, and are going to try some things out, and just through trial and error form into the defense and offense and Denver Broncos that the fans deserve.
Exactly. And they have to figure that out because look at the personnel they have to work with, especially on defense. Joe Woods has no excuse for the Broncos not being a top 5 defense in every major category, including turnovers, including sacks, including yards allowed, passing defense, run defense. You better be a top 5 D with the guys that he's got. I mean, he's probably going to get what, 25 guys at least, 25, 26 guys, 25, 26 of the best defensive players in the NFL, and including, in my opinion, sorry, Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in the game,
Mm-hmm.
Von Miller.
Mm-hmm.
There's no excuse for him. No excuse to not have top 5 D all across the board.
Does any serious person really think Aaron Donald's better than Von Miller?
Well, you get the guys that are all about the. I mean, I love Pro Football Focus. That's the main reason why Aaron Donald is so hype. and he's a dominant player, no doubt. But I think Pro Football Focus really elevated the way people look at him, the way people think about him as a player. Because yeah, he's a great interior player, but I mean, my gosh, the guy's not. He's not Von Miller. He's not the Super Bowl MVP.
No.
Come on now.
No.
Come on now.
That's what people, man, people just get lost.
They
People
do.
get lost in what they think they know and what they really don't know. And it's like a fog of war. Like there's so many things they don't know, and then there's little pockets that they do. Yeah. But the problem is that people look into the fog and then they make determinations.
Right.
But they really don't know. It's not one of your areas of strength that you what's your area of expertise. You got to speak from what you know, man.
That's why they should be listening to the Juice to become educated.
That's why I got Sayre here, because there's a lot of fog around me when it comes to Denver Broncos statistics. We got Sayre, we bring Jeff on, and then I'm like evolving in my Broncos mastery.
Yep, we're all evolving together. We're evolving together in this pursuit of knowledge. And Pro Football Reference is one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Pro Football Reference.
We just want to know the science of the Denver Broncos.
Yeah. Speaking of that, have you ever seen the Chad Kelly sports science video?
No.
Oh man, put that on your list too. That's pretty cool.
I'm gonna add it to the list.
It'll make you a huge fan of Chad Kelly, who is competing in one of the most, well, I would say, in my opinion, it's one of the most interesting roster battles, backup quarterback. John Elway. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not interesting for the fact that I don't know if I'm going to word it that way. It's interesting because the Broncos have interesting players involved, and because that player is one snap away from playing significant, meaningful snaps, and it could be Chad Kelly, which is crazy to me, considering what he was Mr. Irrelevant last year's draft. Kind of a troublemaker.
I think there's so many reasons. I think there's no need to minimize it. There's so many reasons why this is interesting. Yes, they're competing for a backup quarterback position, but one, we're this team a couple years removed from the Super Bowl, so we're still a pretty high-profile team. One of our glaring weaknesses at quarterback, and even signing Case Keenum, is the hope that maybe he'll fill that spot. We still don't have our franchise guy. We need to see him become that franchise guy. So you're ultimately looking at a somewhat fluid quarterback position when it comes to our franchise not being locked in with that guy. Like teams are really wanting, and like Broncos fans are always kind of thirsting for, to not go through those Kyle Orton purgatory stages where you're searching for that guy, So I think not only there's that, but Chad Kelly and Paxton Lynch are a very interesting story. You're talking about, first round pick getting beat out not only by another 7th rounder, but by Mr. Irrelevant. And him being Jim Kelly's son, and just having a personality of his own, and being something of a comeback story. Him coming and beating Paxton, I think would, like we've talked about before, it would solidify that Paxton's probably never going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then now we also have this rising star that if Case either goes down or doesn't pan out as the guy over the course of the next couple of years, the Paxton versus Chad Kelly battle gives you the leading candidate of who will become the face of the Broncos if either Case gets hurt, stalls out, or doesn't pan out over the next couple of years. All of those reasons make this a super interesting battle to watch. So I'm right there with you.
Who would you feel more comfortable with, knowing what you know now about both guys? If Case Keenum goes down, which guy do you trust more going in blindly to training camp?
Well, I like that X factor. I like that, like we've been wanting Paxton to impose his will, and that lack of that. I see Swag Kelly going into a situation and him just making something happen. Yeah, I don't trust. My trust is not with Paxton. And after seeing him
Right.
play, he's definitely been a bit of a disappointment as far as like his just that final equation creating results. And then you just watch him play. He just doesn't play with that fire. He doesn't play with that I'm going to go and
Right.
dominate this team. You feel like he's trying to I don't know how to articulate what I'm thinking right
I
now,
go with
but
you.
he's
Yeah, I
going
totally.
in there and he's not only is he not commanding, but he's not going in there and making the defense afraid of him.
That's a good way to put it. And I think that Kelly can do that. I feel like we just all need to see it in an NFL,
I
even
think
in a
Kelly's far
preseason
closer
setting.
to that.
Yeah.
Far closer.
Yep.
Definitely has more of the personality for it.
Yep. And I will say I've never been more excited for a week 4 preseason game.
Right.
I, I
Right. I think Chad Kelly, if he ends up doing well and being good, at least to where I don't know, he plays some games, starts some games in the NFL. Maybe we're looking at Baker Light, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean,
Poor man's Baker Mayfield,
can you imagine if we had gotten Baker Mayfield, uh, what that
Well,
quarterback room would be?
we would definitely be Hard Knocks for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be far more interesting than the Browns room right now.
Yeah.
Having
Speaking
swagging
of speaking
Baker.
of hard knocks, man, boy, if the Browns get Dez Bryant, that's gonna be a real. I mean, that's already must see TV,
Yeah.
but with Dez added to the mix, I mean, that's gonna be crazy. That's just add. That's a. Oh,
They need to do something new with their jerseys, man.
yeah, their
Their whole
uniforms suck.
team, with their whole team vibe. How can you generate excitement even with the pieces and even with a lot of things that they've done to posture themselves this offseason? How do you get excited about rooting for the Browns?
That.
I'm gonna give them all the credit and all the chance in the world to be good this year, but
Mm-hmm.
you gotta think about the simplicity of that as a fan. It's just like, I'm gonna go wear my brown sweater
Right.
like to support my team. It's like, gosh, I love just putting on some freaking orange and blue, and rolling out and
Yeah.
Bronco symbol or whatever. But it's just like the Browns, man. And then you go out there, it's like, so now we're gonna have this all-star, awesome offensive roster that the Browns potentially have, and then they just come out in brown jerseys.
Right.
Like,
You look ugly every time you step out onto the field.
there's a point where like them just sticking to like being the traditional Browns is like almost just being stubborn and
Yeah.
defiant of like things need to evolve, man. We're almost getting to a point where the Broncos need some new jerseys. And
Yeah.
we're a team that swapped things up and kind of changed and redefined our whole look, in the 90s,
Yep.
not terribly long ago. So, I think that
And the '90s are.
I always move them in Madden. Let's just say that the Browns are
Yeah.
one of my first teams I moved to make them an actually interesting team.
Right, because they're very uninteresting as is. There's a reason
Mm-hmm.
they ceased to exist as a franchise for a period.
I think they're the Columbus Capitals
I like that.
in my Madden, and they got like some sick like red, white, and blue jerseys. Much better,
I
Columbus,
automatically like
Ohio,
that
and
better.
way better, way better. Some personality, some vibrancy.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, I think though the '90s are currently on trend, the Broncos uniforms are. I mean, it's more of that brightly colored look that I think right now is just kind of catching my
Mm-hmm.
eye. I would way prefer like the color rush uniforms. Those are sick.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they didn't want those orange pants every week, you go with the white pants look with those color rush top, and then
Right.
switch it back to that original blue. That original blue is just so cool. It just
See,
works.
I don't know how much I agree with that.
You don't like
And
that,
and
huh?
and it's not that I don't like it. It's that it's too much of a tonal shift now.
Yeah, it
We
would
are
be.
the navy and orange team. So I
Yep.
think that like you look out in a crowd of Broncos, you look at memorabilia, you look at everything, and like we're navy and orange. You know, you start changing that and going back to that blue, and you're changing the color palettes on everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
True.
and clashing colors to a degree, you know, as far as like not necessarily super clashing, but just, you know, not the same blue. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I get what you're saying, but I kind of like the idea, like with the color rush, to where they take the old school D and everything that's old school about it,
Mm-hmm.
but they keep it with what our colors are now.
Yeah, I could get on board for that. I
Especially that
could.
helmet.
The helmet is dope. That whole look is. I mean, it should be the primary look right now. It's a mistake that it's not. I love the. I think my favorite thing about it is not only the simplicity of the uniform, but I love block numbers like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've always preferred that block style of number.
Yep.
Just it's something about it. It's just always. I don't know. I've always liked it.
I think it'd be a nice move backward as everyone's moving up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Yep.
the right move to traditional. And again, I think if you keep our colors, but then you just go back and you have a more classic style to the lettering and the classic helmet and
Yeah.
yeah, yep.
Yep. I like it. Well, let's close out this segment here, Brandon. I want to just go through. There's this fun thing floating around on Twitter right now, and people are talking about this stuff. It's like rising star, breakout player, guy who needs to rebound. All those. We're gonna go through all those categories. We're gonna kind of put each other on the spot here. I
Okay.
put together a list, but I mean, I could easily change the list that I made to.
So
I
guys,
could put all.
we're gonna put each other on the spot. I made a
Yeah,
list, but
I made a list, but I'm gonna totally change it. Yeah. So I'm not on the spot.
yeah,
Uh
cool. I'm ready. I'm
all
ready.
right. So who's your Broncos rising star? So this is kind of how I read this
Hey, give me some
as.
criteria. Yeah.
So like a player who has already kind of established themselves as a very good player, who's kind of ascending into stardom in the NFL.
Mm, let me think. Ascending into stardom. Um, Gosh, there's not a lot of guys on the team that fit that profile. I would say maybe Justin
No.
Simmons.
Yeah, I like that pick. I like Justin Simmons. I like Bradley Roby. I think keep it in the
Yeah.
defensive back a little bit because those two guys they've produced for the Broncos nicely.
Mm-hmm.
But it's now time for them to make the ascent from very good player to star.
Yeah.
So I think those players are definitely qualifying. I don't
None
know
of
if
our offensive weapons qualify for that because
no, nope,
none of our quarterbacks are rising stars unless well you could say Case is probably the only offensive player
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I'm not really
yep,
thinking of
technically,
anybody on the O line right now. It's just as far as the playmakers and the quarterback, no one, none of our wide receivers because they're you know we have two older guys that are Pro Bowlers. None of our tight
right.
ends have done anything yet. None of
Yeah,
our
I
running
think you're
backs have
right.
done anything yet.
It's
Yeah,
it's
just Case.
Keenum or no one.
It's
Yep,
Case, it's Simmons, and it's Roby. I would say are the
yep,
best answers for that. Hmm. Maybe
yep.
Case then. Maybe Case is my answer. Rising
I
star.
like that
Case
pick.
Keenum.
I like that pick. Right, because he might be 30. It doesn't. Nobody said these players had to be 25 and under. You
Right.
know, so I like it.
He's just become you know he's just hit that crescendo to where he's ascended
Mhm.
into stardom, and I think his star is only going to rise higher. So I think that perfectly fits it.
Boom. I love that. I love that pick. We got an offense and two defensive guys could be rising stars.
Next
I'm
up.
big on that. Breakout player. So
Hmm.
criteria for this player has maybe done a little bit of something, but this is more of a predictive. Like this guy's gonna have a breakout season. He's gonna come onto the scene, man.
Okay. Who's my breakout player? Mm. It's not a lot to qualify for this either. Um, you could say Booker.
Yeah.
Um,
And it could be somebody too who has no, I mean, they've done nothing. I mean, I think rookies qualify for breakout player candidates because you're
okay.
expecting this guy to
So
be,
like a Jake Butt could
yeah,
qualify.
yep,
I would say
yeah,
that
yeah.
probably, especially
Jake
because
Butt's a good one.
he's going to be the starting tight end on a team that's going to get funneling the ball in the right spots.
Hmm.
Case is going to go to him. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah,
I like that pick.
Jake
I
Butt.
like on defense. I like DeMarcus Walker,
Yeah, that's a
defensive
good one
lineman.
too. It's a
He
good
could
one.
be a he could be a fun player to watch this year as a breakout guy playing on the defensive line where he belongs. What about comeback player? So this is a guy. This is a different category than a guy who needs to rebound later. So this is the comeback player. So this guy typically is going to be coming off of an injury, uh, suspension, whatever.
A down year too, or just
Down year. So this is how I thought of it is that the guy who needs to rebound is coming off a down year, but I guess it could be comeback player. It depends
is
if
there a
it,
rebound player too?
yeah, there is a rebound
Okay,
player category.
so comeback is returning from something that. Okay.
Yes. Yep. So like
Hmm.
for the Houston Texans, JJ Watt, that's their
Mm-hmm.
comeback player because he's coming back with a vengeance. For the Denver
Mm.
Broncos, so they didn't have a ton of guys that went on IR last year for a really long period of time. You want me to tell you my pick for this one?
Yeah, I'm trying to
I
think.
I picked I picked Sua Cravens
Okay.
for the comeback player.
Yeah,
I mean, he's coming
I
back
guess.
from, you know, basically
Yeah.
retirement, and he had established himself prior to that. So so a guy like Carlos Henderson doesn't work in this because what's he? I mean, he's not coming back as in like, okay, yeah, he was a star.
Coming back, you have to have been there before.
Exactly, exactly.
Hmm. And who else? Who else would even qualify besides Cravens?
Um, maybe maybe a guy like Ron Leary. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. He played most of last season. Um, I I don't know. That's tough.
That is a tough one.
This is a tough category for the Broncos. Maybe looking at the defensive side of the ball, I don't think anybody on this list is like
Who had a
they
huge
were.
drop last year?
Maybe you could argue Darian Stewart had one. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
tough that's
reaching.
a tough call. There's not
That's a
a
tough one. Let's just
maybe
go
Shane
Cravens.
Ray. I don't know.
Yeah, let's go Cravens.
Cravens is a good one. Do not forget about this player. So this player is a guy that maybe even Broncos fans have a little bit taken for granted. Like, don't forget, you know, remind yourself often that this player is, he still
Hmm.
exists. He's still on the team. He's still doing things. He's consistent, maybe even to a boring degree.
Hmm. That they would have forgotten about, especially. Somebody on the O line.
Mm,
Gosh.
Paradis. I hadn't thought about him before, but he could qualify.
I was thinking Leary for that one.
Leary's a good one.
Um. Gosh, don't forget about me. Derek Wolf. I don't.
Oh, hey,
No one's really talking Derek Wolf at all.
I like that pick because he could almost be a comeback guy too because he's got the whole spine neck thing going on.
Right.
Tough tough situation for him. I think I like the Wolf pick. I like that pick a lot actually. Don't forget about Derek Wolfe.
who's another somebody had a down. Was it the Tampa Bay defensive end we brought in? Didn't he have a down
Then
year last year
McDonald.
too?
He had 5.5 sacks, but I don't know what
Okay,
else.
yeah,
What
forgot
else?
about
He was kind of a situational rusher for them.
it. Got it. Cool. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
next
like
one.
that. I like that pick. Do not forget about Derek Wolfe,
Don't forget
rebound
Derek Wolf.
player who had a bad year last year. Is going to rebound. They played
DT.
they DT. Yep, the receivers, the DT and Emmanuel, I think are huge for this category. Because both guys had bad
DT
years.
and Vaughn.
Vaughn's an interesting rebound guy. Why do you say Vaughn? I'm curious. I don't disagree. I'm just curious.
Because he needs to get a lot closer to breaking that sack record this
He
year.
does. My God.
I mean, yes, Vaughn. Most players would have taken Vaughn's year last year, but we're
Yeah.
trying to get back to the top. So
Yeah.
it was a down year. It was a down year for Vaughn being the greatest.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Michael Strahan better be shaking in his boots
Mm-hmm.
because that 22.5 sacks is going to get busted.
Vaughn's coming.
Vaughn's coming.
Vaughn and
Who's the
Chubb.
dark horse? Dark horse on the Broncos.
Dude,
This is a guy.
I probably got to go D'Angelo Henderson, right?
Yeah.
I
That's
said it
exactly.
earlier before I knew I was going to get us a pop quiz.
Yep. D'Angelo's a great candidate. I think that's a
Mm.
guy. This is a guy that like people are predicting to be bottom of the depth chart, but that guy's going to play a huge role in some way, shape, or form. Not necessarily
I would say I've got this is maybe the one that I have the most answers for that I'm
yeah.
excited about. Josie
Yes.
Jewell, D'Angelo
yeah.
Henderson, Deshaun Hamilton, Fumagalli,
Mm-hmm.
who on D? I mean Cravens could. I think Cravens could fit that.
Yeah. Yep.
As far as him coming in and really making a statement, kind of being toward the bottom. Gosh, you know, I could see Shaq
Yeah.
getting like a surprising amount of sacks, taking advantage of his positional use. You got to think about how rested those guys are going to at all times.
Oh yeah. Full speed at all times.
You got to think like late in the game, a full speed and fully rested Shane Ray and Barrett is going to be like Vaughn and Chubb, worn out by that point of the game. They're going to be at the same pace. You're almost going to want them to keep a tired Vaughn and Chubb in rather than replacing them with a fresh.
Oh yeah.
That gets me excited.
I can't wait. I feel like all throughout the season we're gonna be asking for the pass rush to just be injected into our veins.
To fire the missiles.
Yeah, just give me the missiles. Just put it in my veins.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Main line.
Yep. Those are good dark horse candidates. I like we talked about DeMonte Thomas a little bit earlier. I like him a little bit in that role. What about a super dark horse? Isaiah McKenzie.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. I was gonna say if I was gonna go super dark horse, I'm saying Lindsey.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, what if Lindsey has 3 kick return touchdowns this year?
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Huge.
You never know what's gonna happen, man.
You never know.
You never know.
It's
gonna be a wild year.
I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think people are too down on the Broncos. Even Broncos fans, I think you're too down on the season already.
Wasn't that good to see Good Morning America Good Morning Football give us some love, talking about how they might be underestimating us?
Because people like those people actually think about things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Case Keenum's going to revert like we talked about earlier. No, they actually put some thought into that. They look at the roster and they're like, dang, like this is actually a good team.
And by them saying, we might be sliding them, it felt like a commentary on just mainstream sports perspective of the Broncos right now in general, more so than just we on the show. It's like maybe the national conversation and the national expectation about the Broncos is wrong.
Yeah.
And we're about to see something special.
And they addressed it. I liked that. I did like that. I appreciated that.
You don't get a lot of that. It's like they're not as good as they are when we're good, and just mad trash talking on all the way up to the top.
Yep.
And yeah, it's always never expectations unless we have Peyton Manning. There's no love for us, and even then
it was
get dogged.
Well, Peyton Manning can't play in cold weather. Yeah, that's their thing. Peyton Manning can't beat Tom Brady. Peyton Manning can't win in the cold. Peyton did this, It was just one thing after another, man. It's like, give us a break. The guy just threw 55 touchdown passes. 55.
Oh, cynical people, man.
I know. It's a shame. It's a bummer. I would think that there'd be a lot better things to do with your life than follow football if you want to be that cynical. Football's fun.
And if you want to be one of those people, don't be a fun sucker and ruin it for everybody else.
Right. Let us enjoy it.
Some of us like having fun doing this.
Yep. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna have fun watching this season, man.
All the way to the top, 19-0.
19-0. This is the last one. Most underrated.
Most underrated. Most underrated. Case certainly qualifies.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that actually.
Most
underrated. Case. Gosh. If DT just had more of a dominant attitude, I would say that. But he might. When the story's written on his career, it might just be that he was a really good football player that was a tad too soft, and it kept him from greatness.
Yeah. I can see that.
Underrated. I don't see anyone else specifically on our team that's terribly underrated. Chris Harris, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I think we're hitting the same rounds we were at earlier.
Do you think anyone in Broncos country underrates any specific players on our own team?
On our own team,
I feel like Broncos fans are hard on the players.
They're hard on DT for sure.
Yep.
I think he's definitely even saying what I just said about him being a bit too soft. I still think he's underrated in Denver Broncos fans' perception. Gosh.
Shaquille Barrett, is he underrated?
I think we got a lot of love for Shaq.
We do. The Broncos fans know about Shaq well, very well. He does get a lot of love from the fan. In fact, I would say I would venture to guess that he's one of the most unanimously liked players on the team by fans.
Yeah. Do you think Justin Simmons is a little underrated?
I could see
by
that.
Fans?
Yes, I would say so.
I would say there's maybe a couple things, maybe in some of his just some young growing pains that maybe people have held on to. I don't know. I just don't get the sense that he's as accepted as he should be.
Right. I think this year will change that.
Agreed.
He's gonna establish himself. So tomorrow morning, or excuse me, whenever you're listening to this training camp, who's the player that you are most interested to get an update on from camp? If you're logging onto Twitter, you're reading through all these updates from training camp, which one's getting you to stop and be like, all right, that's the one that I was looking for?
Are we saying not saying Case
It
to make
doesn't
it
have to
interesting?
be. Make it interesting, yeah.
Oh man. You know, I think I don't know if I have a specific player answer for you. I think I can narrow it to position.
Yeah.
Is I'm most curious about running back.
Yes. Yep.
I'm by far most curious about running back. I think that's and I'm not looking at it like, oh, we got to see if we have a guy there.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, which of these five guys that have a good chance to make our team are going to do it, and then who's gonna set themselves apart, or is it going to be something to where you're only a nose ahead, and then we're playing the hot hand?
Yep. Yep.
Because I think that's very likely. I think it's very likely that no matter who's starting that week, that's an audition for next week too.
Right.
The other guy that they put in as well. What does he do with the limited carries you give him versus the guy that you let carry the rock for
Mm,
80% of the game? And
yep.
if that guy did a better job, then maybe you roll with see if it pans out into practice that week, and then you roll with him too. I don't know. I think probably no specific player, but definitely the running back group.
Yeah. I would say for me, it's always wide receivers. I don't know, for some reason I love that position. It just intrigues me. It intrigues
So
me to see.
would you say Sutton the most? You want to hear
Yeah.
about Sutton the most tomorrow?
Yeah, I want to know what Sutton's doing. That's my guy for camp. I would love to just continue to hear about how he's dominating and how he's setting himself physically apart. Like you talked about with DT, I want Sutton to impose his will.
Yeah.
I want him to impose his will.
Yep.
There's interesting factoid to close out the show here. I'm all about the interesting facts. So we're talking. I don't even know. I don't even know if this is going to be interesting to anybody else. But I found this incredibly interesting. So Cortland Sutton was recruited to play college football at SMU by legendary coach June Jones. June Jones obviously was the head coach at Hawaii for a great number of years, where he coached, guys like Timmy Chang to the all-time passing record in college football history, yada yada. Went to SMU and coached there for a couple of years. And in his last year there, he recruited Cortland Sutton and landed him. That was one of his last big recruits
Wow.
in 2014, and then he resigned before he really ever even got to coach him. And after that 2014 season, he kind of took a hiatus from coaching, went and became the offensive coordinator at some high school in Hawaii for a year, and then became the head coach of the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the Canadian Football League in 2017. The Hamilton Tiger Cats, drafted number 1 overall, traded up to get Mark Chapman,
Mm-hmm.
the wide receiver the Broncos just signed ahead of training camp here.
So
And
tell me why are people having an issue with the wide receivers that we have? I've seen this from multiple places, and it's like, what's the issue with us having any number of wide receivers going into training camp?
yeah, I don't know. For me, I pose the question just as a do we need do we need we have 12, do we need 2 more type of thing?
Right.
Instead of saying, all right, we can go grab somebody who plays tight end and see if they can separate themselves from Austin Traylor and be the number 4. But I don't mind having guys like Philly Brown and Mark Chapman in there, because those guys, you're expecting those guys to come in and compete for a roster position. I mean, obviously the Broncos are wide open after their top 4 receivers. I think that's clear now. They're involving as many people as possible. And I think compounded with Jordan Taylor's injury, Carlos Henderson's situation, and then Jimmy Williams, who was an undrafted player who's apparently not reporting to training camp, which, I mean, wouldn't that be interesting if 2 undrafted rookies on a team that only had, like, what did we have, 12, retire before training camp even begins? With
Wow.
Lowell Lotulelei retired before even OTA started. And then if Jimmy Williams retires before training camp, that'd be pretty wild.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever
Weird.
heard of that before.
Weird.
So, yeah, very, very strange. So maybe, I don't know, Zach Azani we talked about him in the podcast that never was with Jeffrey about Zach Azani as the wide receivers coach and how he kind of rubbed Emmanuel Sanders a little bit wrong. And that was an interesting situation there, but Sanders kind of came around. But I don't know, maybe look at all these wide receivers that are kind of dipping. You know? It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's strange, but I don't get the feeling that he's the problem.
No.
Like, we could have a whole nother conversation about this, by the way, and maybe we do next podcast. But I've been watching the new seasons of Last Chance U, and for those that don't know, Sarah initially recommended to me on the show to check out Last Chance U and described it to me, and then I went and marathoned and watched those first 2 seasons. But with this 3rd season, you have this transfer that they have from I forget, it was a big program that he ended up going to, and then he's now, going JUCO and trying to climb back up. Really talented. He's been around a great program. He started for them. He saw how a well-oiled machine worked, and now that he's on, this program with this coach that is a little bit more. This coach, he's quoted as saying, coaching isn't as complicated as people make it out to be. If you have players and they believe in you enough, they'll run through anybody. And there's like a semblance of that's true, but you really see where it goes off the rails, how there's like some disorganization. And if they don't buy in, you now have a schemeless football team, but this starting quarterback, that came from this big program, he is not, he's not a great leader, and he doesn't have a great attitude, and he constantly, when things go wrong, very quickly identifies the coach as the problem and their lack of preparation and all this stuff. But it's not the problem that he diagnoses and identifies it. It's then that he fights against it and clashes against the coach. And you just don't see this buying into the vision and moving in that direction to where you're going to trust your leadership regardless of whether you like him or not. And there was a kid that fought the coach, and his friend went out and was like, dude, you know how much your mom has paid for you to, put you here? He's like, and the friend's like, the kid said, I know, you're right. He's like, you're right. And he's like, I don't want to practice. I don't always want to practice, but that's what you got to do, And so it's just, I see that even with this wide receiver coaches, is like, even if these guys are like too soft and he's coming in and like, he's changing up like the philosophy and the approach and everything. That's what I got more with Emmanuel Sanders, is like, he's like the veteran that's been around for a while. Now we got the young wide receiver coach coming in who's going to be implementing he's the new boss, man, of that crew, of that room. And Emmanuel has to submit. Yep. That's his job now. It's your job to follow after your wide receiver coach. If Elway didn't bring the right guy in, there's channels to take it to make that complaint.
Right.
You don't get to be insubordinate to the guy above you. And I think that's where that story probably got overblown on a slow day. And, I doubt it's going to pan out to being anything, but I don't think that a change of the the wide receiver coach and even him just approaching things from a different way is going to drive away, a few of the players on the team.
I agree. And if it weeds out some bad,
right.
Exactly. If it weeds out some bad, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get all the guys that are bought in and on board for, as John Elway said, and thinking about, kicking and screaming. Plan A. We're not thinking about not making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Talking about not making the playoffs.
Hasn't even entered my mind.
Yeah.
Hasn't even entered my mind.
All I'm thinking about is winning the Super Bowl. What's that? What is that movie? That's I don't even remember, but I remember that's a line from a movie. I'm thinking Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
Oh,
John Elway's only got 3 words playing in his mind right now: 19 and 0.
Yep. And why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he have those thoughts? with Case Keenum leading the way, Von Miller. If you go strictly by the stats, the Broncos won all 5 of their games last year with a QB rating of 97 point something. And they didn't lose a game that it was anywhere near that number. So if it was even within like 10 points, they won the game. And Case Keenum's average last year was 98 point something. I'm just saying.
There we go.
That's undefeated right there.
It's 19-0.
If they get good quarterback play, they will win the majority of their games. Guarantee. I'll guarantee it right now. If the Broncos get decent quarterback play, if Case Keenum plays at Tannehill level, we win 13 games minimum.
Right.
And I'm veering off the 19-0 train just for the people who are cynical for now, just to appease them.
Right.
Just to give them a number other than 19. But we're still going to be in 19 games, obviously. So.
Right. It's time, baby. It's time.
Time. Training camp is here. Broncos football is here. It's time to get excited. Don't even think about what it's going to be like if they don't make the playoffs. We haven't even thought about it.
Hashtag go get it.
Hashtag go get it.
It's time to take what's yours. It's time to take the title. It's time to take the crown.
Yep.
It's time to take the AFC West, baby.
Take it back. My gosh. The Chiefs are done. I'm done with the Chiefs. I've had Chiefs fans trolling all off season. They're about to finish 4th place. They don't even realize it. Apparently, they just haven't come to terms. So
the 1960s called, and they want to talk to you about your last Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yep.
That's or whenever it was.
50 years. Yeah. That's what they're. Remember in 2009, it was the 50-year anniversary of the AFL that we wore those ugly uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs are about to celebrate their 50-year anniversary of their Super Bowl. What was it? Super Bowl 1? Jeez. Get out of here. Get out of here with that. I think
you
it was
You got to go too far back in history to make a point for them. Well, besides the fact that they just won the AFC West last
year. Yeah.
But we're talking Super Bowls. We're talking about what matters here.
Yeah, let's talk about the team that actually does something with their AFC West crown. We win playoff games. We don't lose at home to the Titans. Get out of here. No. Get that crapola on out of here.
Nor do we have the oldest player in the NFL to have not gone to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Philip Rivers.
Yep, Philip Rivers.
Dude, we're surrounded by a bunch of losers, and we're still underestimated. Come on.
I know.
And the Raiders? Who?
Did you hear John Gruden's latest quote, speaking of the Raiders?
No.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, I don't have it verbatim, but it was a hilarious – people should ask him this every single week and just hope that he has a new answer every week. But they keep asking about technology. And when he gives his thoughts on technological advancements, it's the – if you were to write a character in one of your shows that was just like this curmudgeonly, sticking to the past, like that's my thing.
He's like stubborn Uncle John.
Yeah. Yes, he's just Uncle John who's just disgruntled by all technological advancements. And so, somebody asked him about it, and he's like, some technology is good, and the new stuff, some of it is good, but some of it's bad. Like I got this new remote, and I like my old remote better. He's just,
oh gosh,
like he just
sounds like a geezer.
Yeah, he's complaining about his remote.
As we're unveiling like the state of the arts, like future of like sports technology, like across our facility, John Gruden's like banging the remote against the wall.
Yeah.
Hitting it over Khalil Mack's head, just trying, putting the batteries in backwards.
Yep. Who put the batteries?
That's the state of the Raiders. That's the state of the Raiders. The Raiders are remote control with the batteries in backwards.
Yeah. If I was the equipment guy, I would be willing to risk my job on putting the batteries in wrong every week and just watching him freak out.
Oh yeah. I want to see that on Hard Knocks.
Who put the batteries in this thing, man? And every sentence ends with man. Like man. Canadians with A, yeah. Like people say A, Canadian A. John Gruden is man. Yeah.
I am ready to watch him be the Raiders coach though.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. if he can bring back the, if he can bring back the 90s as far as his sideline apparel, I'm all for it.
Dude, they're remaking Chucky too in like the same year, man. It's like all these things are happening at the same time. Chucky's back. They're remaking Chucky. It's like, it's crazy, man. I hate Chucky.
It's crazy, man. I hate Chucky, man. Yeah, it's scary, man.
Here's how we'll end the podcast. Here's my Chucky story. So I was a little kid. I saw Chucky at a friend's house when I was way too young.
Yeah.
And it was like constant Chucky nightmares. And then one time Chucky showed up and I had a samurai sword for whatever reason. And I'm telling you, I swung and I just cut Chucky's head off. And so then the next time he showed up in my dream, I just looked at him. I'm like, Chucky, what are you doing here, bro? Cut your head off. Like, wait. Am I missing something? And then he was gone. And I never had a nightmare of Chucky ever again.
Wow.
I literally decapitated my fear of Chucky.
Literally. The kid from Stranger Things wishes that strategy would have worked for him.
Yeah, that's where like I'm watching him and I'm like, just get your samurai sword, bro.
Get the samurai sword.
You deal with all these creatures in the Upside Down real quick.
Yep, you're pathetic without a samurai sword.
Dude, you got to make it. You know what? That kid had a lack of imagination. That's the problem right there. That's his character weakness.
That's very ironic too, considering that that whole party is based on their imaginative. Like the start of the show is them using their imagination with the game.
Right.
Man, it's all come full circle now.
So close, but yet so far.
Yep. 19-0 on the way, Broncos fans. So get ready to enjoy the ride. It's time to ride, presented by Ford. Broncos country is Ford country.
The hashtag Denver Decapitators.
Yep, Denver Decapitators.
Chopping off heads this year.
Yep.
Everything we're afraid of.
Absolutely. It's going to happen. Speak it into existence. That's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we're going to do. Well, Brandon, I feel like it's time. I feel like everybody's ready for the final sign-off of this episode of The Juice.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope you guys are enjoying training camp news as it's coming, as we are recording this late, deep into Friday night. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. Excited to have you with us on the journey. Excited for the Broncos' awesomeness that's coming in the days ahead. Thank you. Have a great night. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Have a great life. This is Sayre Bedinger and Brandon Keckler. God bless and go Broncos.